Amy, and you know, we are only is it 6? No, it's 6 days. We are 6 days into July, and I figure I better do my June wrap-up before it gets too far into July, and it's just like, really, you're just now doing your June wrap-up? And I'm also going to end the video with my July TBR. So there are a lot of books to talk about, so let's get started. The first books that I read during the TBR takedown in the first week of July, no, not July, in June, first week of June. And so just to do a little refresher, because I did do a TBR wrap-up video, we'll just do a little refresher of what the books that I read. And the first book was 8,000 Pieces of You by Claudia Gray. The book was fantastic. Highly recommend it. This was a 5-star book. And yes, the review is coming sometime in the future. The next book that I read was Married Till Monday by Denise Hunter. If you're looking for a good romance book where the characters are acting like normal people, like they would in real life, dealing with real life problems in a honest and real way, I highly recommend this book. Okay, so those are the books that I read during the TBR takedown in the first week of June. And then the next book that I read was To Win Her Favor by Tamara Alexander. I don't have my copy anymore. It's not here because I lent it to a friend, and it was fantastic. This was one of my favorite books that I read this year. It was so good, 5-star all the way. If you're looking for an amazing romance historical fiction novel, I would highly recommend this book. And then the next book that I finished was the graphic novel that I had chosen, and that is Alabaster Wolves. And this book was odd. It was odd. I have to say, I felt like I was coming into the middle of the story, that I was missing something, and it was a lot darker than I had anticipated. And so I don't know if I'm going to continue this story or not. I may, but I probably won't buy the second volume until I read it and know if I really like it. And so if you're looking for a dark graphic novel, I think I would recommend it, because the art is fantastic. And maybe it's because I've never read graphic novels that I didn't really, there's something I was missing, so I don't know. So I don't know. So that's Alabaster Wolves. And then the next book that I read and finished was the first book in the Raven cycle, The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. And I got to buddy read this book with Elizabeth, and I'll put a link down to her channel below. She also has an amazing video review of this book. It was fantastic. And so I'll put a link to that video down below, so you should go check that out as well. And this book, it was odd. It was about this girl Blue and these 4 boys that are called the Raven Boys. The book was confusing. Elizabeth said it the best. She said that it was like looking through etched glass, where you could see what was going on, but you couldn't really see because it was distorted. And so for most of the story, I felt like I was on the outside, looking in and really not seeing what was going on. I didn't get into this book until about 200 pages in, 250 pages in. This book is only 400 pages long, so it was interesting enough that it kept me going. And Elizabeth said, you know, keep going, it gets better. And I don't really know what I think about this book. The writing was funky. For the entire book, she has different points of view, and it was really hard until Blue and the Raven Boys, their stories connected, because there was like 5 different stories going on, and I didn't really understand what was going on, and it was just odd. And I will continue reading the series. I will continue with the next book. The thing I don't understand is that I was recommended this book so many times when I was looking for a book that would just blow my mind. And I don't really understand why everybody recommended this book to me. Because it didn't blow my mind. It just left me confused. So I don't know. I gave this book I think a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Because it wasn't terrible. I liked it. but it wasn't fantastic. So that was The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. And then the last book that I finished, I technically finished it in July, but it was like on the 2nd of July, and I read most of it in June. So I'm counting it as a June read, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. It's a ridiculously long, hard title to say. Okay, so this book, I'm not going to go into what it's about because I know you've heard what this is about at least a half a thousand times. This book, I picked it up because I had heard some good things about it and that it was a rough retelling of Beauty and the Beast, and I really liked Beauty and the Beast. So I picked it up, and I liked it enough that I ended up buying it when I was about halfway through, and so I enjoyed it enough to buy it, to spend my hard-earned money on this book. With that said, okay, the first half is very YA. It is pretty good world building. I really liked the characters. I didn't really like Feyre. I thought she was rather annoying, and it just kind of got obnoxious that she was fighting everything, and it's just like, stop, just stop. And then you get into the last third of the book, and the last story of the book is so far from YA that if this was a movie and everything that is in this book was in a movie, it would be rated R. It would not be suitable for children, young adults. 17 and younger could not get into this movie without an adult present. So that just makes me so very angry that this is being it's being pushed on to youth that should not be reading graphic love scenes. They're very graphic, and it's not like just a paragraph. It's like 5-6 pages. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And so that just makes me very angry when a book is so not a YA, and it's in the YA section. It's like, what should young readers be reading? And this is on the table. No! Young readers should not be reading this book. No! So, parents, just so you know, if you have bought this book for your child, I personally would not let even probably my 17-year-old child read this book. That's just me. I mean, just so you know, there's graphic love scenes, and the violence is very graphic and very detailed, and it's pretty hard. And with that said, okay, so moving on, it's not, I would say 18 as youngest I would recommend this book to. So that is my opinion. Take it, do with whatever you will. Okay, and then how I felt about this book, I'm not really sure how I feel about it. I thought the writing was definitely better than Throne of Glass. The world building was pretty good. There are still some questions of why are things happening this way and that way, and I don't think it really needs to be a series. I think she could have made it a little bit longer, 200 pages longer, just made a pretty chunker of a book, made it a 600-page book, and she could have been done with it. That's just personally what I think. I don't think it needs to, I don't know how long the series is going to be, but I don't think it needs to be a really long series. I don't know, I did like Feyre by the end, but I don't know. I just think that there's a lot of, I don't know. I really don't know how I feel about this book. I'm still on that, when I finished it, I was like, I just don't know how I feel. So maybe in a few days, few weeks, I'll think about it more and know how I feel. So, okay. With that said, that was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. Okay. So those are the books that I read and finished in June. And then I have a couple books that I started but I'm not going to finish. And the first of one is Anderson Harp's Born of War. I started this for the TBR takedown and I read a little bit more, but I'm just not interested. So I'm not feeling bad about not finishing that book. And then I started this next book over the weekend, and that is Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I got about 50 pages, a little over 50 pages in this book, and that's about a fourth of the book, and I didn't like it. I thought it was boring, and there were a couple scenes that I just thought were inappropriate and unnecessary, and just not enjoying it, and so I'm not going to feel bad about not finishing this book. Okay, so those are books that I'm not finishing, and then I have my books that I'm going to read for July. And the first book should come at no surprise if you have been a part of my channel for a while, and this book was not on my wrap-up, and that is Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson, the third book in the Miss Foreign series. Eventually, I will finish this. I did notice that I had 30 chapters left in this book, so I thought, oh, if I read one chapter a day in July, I'll have this done by the end of July. I haven't done that. So I've decided this book has become more than just a book. He had to have a name. So this is Frank, and maybe one day Frank will get to go back on my shelf. Who knows? Okay, and then the next book that I'm currently reading, I started about 70 pages in, and that is Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. This is actually not a book that is set in the Cosmere. This is set on Earth in a new city called New Chicago. It's a playoff of Chicago, and it is another YA dystopian novel. However, I'm about 70 pages in, as I already said, and I just think that Brandon Sanderson's going to do something different with dystopian YA that has not been done before. And then the next book that I have, this is actually an ARC that I received when I went to my convention in May, and I wanted to read it before it came out on July 14th, and that is Center of Gravity by Laura McNeil. And this book follows, what's her name? Ava and Mitchell. Ava had been getting a lot of pressure from her family to get married, so she meets Mitchell and they get married, and everything seems like it's going wonderful. And then Mitchell becomes very controlling, and then eventually he files for divorce and is wanting sole custody of their two boys, and so Ava hires a lawyer and is digging into his life and realizes that he is not what he seems. And so this just sounds like a really interesting book. I'm looking forward to reading something that's not fantasy, that does not require any world building, just character development and a good mystery, and it just sounds fantastic. So that is Center of Gravity by Laura McNeil. And then the next book is another graphic novel, one that my husband got me for my birthday, and that is My Little Ponies Friends Forever. And I am really excited about reading this book. It just looks so cute and fun and colorful, and I used to play with My Little Ponies when I was growing up, and so it just feels like I'm going into my childhood, and it's going to be so much fun. And the artwork is just so colorful and so cute, and I cannot wait to read this book. Okay, and then the last book that is on my TBR, oh my goodness, this book is so heavy, and that is the fourth book in the Harry Potter series, The Goblet of Fire. I've been rereading the series for a long time. This book has actually been on my TBR for like 3 or 4 months, and I am going to get to this book this month because I just need to read something that is fantastic. I have read a couple books that have been fantastic in the past couple months, but I just haven't, except for A Thousand Pieces of You did kind of not blow my mind, but really kept me reading. It was amazing. But just, I don't know, I've just had a rather disappointing reading year, and I'm really looking forward to reading something that I know I'm going to love. And I just love Harry Potter. I just love it. So I'm looking forward to reading The Goblet of Fire. Okay, so that is my official TBR. If by some chance I finish all of these, I have a couple that I will pick up. I have a huge stack that is in front of me from the convention that I went to that I need to get to, and I have a bunch of books on my Nook that I need to read. So if I finish these, then I will choose from them, and that is that. Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to go and edit this video, drink some iced tea, and can I just tell you guys, I really hope this video is good. I've filmed my June wrap-up and July TBR. I think this is the 4th time I've filmed it. Each time it's just been way too long, or I've forgotten books or something that I just didn't like. And so this is going to be the last time I film this video. It's just going to be. It just has to be. It has to be. Okay. Well, guys, let me know down below some books that you read last month that you loved and some books that you're looking forward to reading this month. And as always, guys, I hope you're having a great reading month and will continue to have a great reading month. And I will see you on the flip side. Bye! 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 I wish there were more hours in the day. So I could read for 5 hours, and I could write for 5 hours, and can I watch TV for 5 hours, and sleep for 12, and hang out with my husband for 5 hours, and play games. But there's only 24 hours in the day. Alas. Okay, I just made this video longer.